Awards, DXing, and contesting. So some people get real into this.
Right.
And it can be a lot of fun. And there's a contest. Winter Field Day is next weekend, but there's also this week is the North American QSO Party. That's everybody in every state. QSO.
What's QSO?
That's what you and I have a talk. QSO.
Keep in mind the underlying reason for all of these DX parties and field days and all that kind of stuff is preparedness.
And familiarity with your equipment.
Yes.
And confidence in your equipment. Hey, I know I can make it to Spain with that wire in my backyard.
It also demonstrates that we're actually using the frequencies.
Yes.
So the FCC can't say, oh, you guys aren't using this, so we're going to take advantage of
Right. So very few people use 60. FEMA uses 60. We're secondary. And they're going, hey, you know, you guys never use that. We're going to take it away completely. That's what they're talking about. Because if you don't use it, you'll lose it. On-air activities provide incentive to get on the radio. Learn about propagation. That's another good reason to do contests. As you search for specific stations on various bands, you will learn a lot getting involved in international contests as well as national contests and even state contests. Get QSL cards from around the world. I've got, I don't know how many from Japan, a few from Korea, none from North Korea yet. I don't expect to ever have those. I got one from a 9-year-old amateur extra. That was pretty cool. So there's physically a card. Improve your operating skills, and it's fun. The other thing is, if you're running a contest and you go onto one frequency and you call CQ, keep calling CQ for a while because they got to find you. And once they find you, you can get a pilot, and that's a lot of fun because you just picked hey, I heard a Kilo 7 station. I heard a Kilo Hotel station or whatever you heard, and then that guy comes back to you and you go, okay, QRZ, that's all you gotta do is QRZ, who's next? Pull one out. Keep racking up the contacts instead of searching back and forth on the thing to get one. Okay, DXCC. That's, DX is outside your normal communications area. So with VHF, from here to Roseburg is DX. With HF, outside of your country's boundaries as DX. Including Hawaii and Alaska for us is considered DX. Contacting 100 different entities, countries. DXCC, it's the Century Club. WAS, worked all states, contacting all 50 states. VUCC is contacting 100 grid squares on VHF or UHF. So 100 different, that's a lot of territory. You're gonna have to be on sideband, you're gonna probably have to have a beam. There's another one, I don't know if it's up here, so I'm gonna talk about it right now. This is 100 grid squares. There are 488. The Fred Fish Memorial Award on 6 meters, which is VHF, contacting all 488 grid squares. There are rare grid squares on the coast of Oregon. If you activate those rare grid squares and put out the word that you're going to activate it, they will come to you. Contacting stations far away, a tradition since the first days of radio. That probably should have been the first one about DX. On HF, it usually means contacting stations in other countries. On VHF, UHF, it means contacting stations outside your normal coverage area. Talked about all that, it's not on the test. Contesting involves contacting as many stations as possible during a specified period, except the last weekend in June, and then it doesn't count. The last weekend in June is Field Day, and Field Day is not a contest. We have been sworn up and down that it's not a contest by the ARRL. But we keep track, we keep score, and they put out...
And it's published results.
And it puts out a list, and we are number 1 in Oregon, the CARE Club, and the RVIRC. Number 1 in Oregon, number 27 in the nation for our category and class. They published the score in QST magazine, but it is not a contest.
So how do you get the proof?
I log that I talked to you, and you log that you talked to me.
And both logs.
All logs get submitted, and then they go, oh, those two guys, they jive.
And from there, they look at the characteristics of each station, and in some cases, you get more than 1 point for that contact.
Yes. Do go to Field Day. Do go to Field Day. You'll get the opportunity to use different equipment. You'll be able to get on the air even if you don't have privileges in that band, in that section, because there will be someone who does, and you can use third party. The ARRL sweepstakes is out there. The state QSO, every state has a QSO party. VHF and UHF contests. RIDI, our radio teletype contests. And CQ Worldwide DX Contest, and there's a bunch. Write this one down if you're interested at all in contesting. Contestcalendar.com. Contestcalendar.com, and there's a calendar up there, and you can go and see what's coming up next week. You can go and see what's coming up the next month, or you can go down the list chronologically of what's coming up in the next year. Contest. Good procedure when contacting another station in a contest is the only procedure. If you do anything else, they're not going to be happy with you. Send only the minimum information needed for proper identification and the contest exchange. Contests are fast. Every contest has a different exchange. Some of them is your first name and the year you first got a license. It all depends on what that contest wants. So only the minimum. That's it, because he wants to go to the next station. I want to go to the next station. You must identify your station according to normal FCC regulations. Special events. Special event stations are set up to commemorate some significant local event. The term significant is rather loosely interpreted sometimes. Usually stations are demonstration stations set up for public display. You'll have special events on museum ships. You'll have special events at the Indianapolis 500, whatever. Commemorative certificates are awarded for contacting the station. Field Day, emergency communications training with a competitive spirit. But it's not a contest. Which begs the question, why keep score? Set up portable station and antenna in the field, mobile, anywhere. You can do it from your home. Make as many contacts as possible. They get started with your local club or group. Great way to get involved. Radio direction finding. It's on test, useful for locating noise interference or jamming sources. We've got some guys out there that don't think they need your ID, so if they keep it up, they'll get direction found.
Yep.
Works best with a directional antenna, which you can build out of just about anything, including a tape measure. We have had classes to build tape measure directional antennas. Fox hunting, or T-hunts, or competitions on FM, offer a fun opportunity to learn how to do it. Good training for search and rescue. Weak signal, VHF, UHF, DXing. VHF, UHF, DX contacts are normally short. Bands usually open only briefly for long distance propagation because you just got lucky and you got propagation to somebody. You get it over with and you get everything you got to do done, and then if you got extra time, you could BS with them. A multimode transceiver is necessary to make these contacts using single sideband, CW, or digital modes for weak signal VHF, UHF, DXing. Upper sideband is the most commonly used for single sideband voice comms in the VHF, UHF bands. Satellites. Space station is an amateur station located more than 50 kilometers above the Earth.
And you likely will see that question on your test.
You're going to see something about space stations or satellites. The ISS is the space station, but we've got CubeSats. They could be as little as 8, maybe even smaller, 8 by 8 inches. And they literally use a tape measure for their antenna and a piece of fishing line to release the antenna when they put power to a resistor, because when the resistor has got power through it, it gets hot, right? You send power through the resistor, it melts the fishing line and lets the tape measure plop out. And that's a satellite flying around the Earth. Any amateur holding a technician class or higher, tech class or higher, may contact the International Space Station on VHF bands. Good luck, unless you are a teacher with a class full of children, but you're allowed. Anyone can receive telemetry from a space station. Why is that? You're receiving. Anyone can receive telemetry from a space station. Oscar, orbiting satellites carrying amateur radio. That's what they call the program, their stuff up there. Commonly used modes by amateur satellites are FM, single sideband, CW data. This is generally, they add a little extra payload, and they say, hey, stick this in. Minimum power necessary should be used when making satellite communication. Using excessive effective radiated power on a satellite uplink can block access by the others. It's got so much it can send out. It sends it out based on how strong it was coming in. If it's strong coming in, it sends it out strong, and now there's no power left for anybody else. Use the minimum. One way to determine whether your uplink power is neither too high nor too low nor too high is if your signal strength on a downlink is about the same as the beacon. So it's got a thing up there saying, hey, this is who I am. Doppler shift. Doppler shift is an observed shift in frequency due to relative motion between the satellite and the Earth station. So I'm sending a signal up, and it's the wavelength is a certain length, right? Well, if I'm flying along at 17,000 miles an hour in orbit, I'm making that shorter. Or if it's back here and I'm flying away from it, it's making it longer because it takes extra time for each bit of that wave to get to me. That's Doppler. LEO is not a law enforcement officer in the ham radio community. It is low Earth orbit. 2,000 kilometers or less is low Earth orbit. Uplink is the earth stations transmit to the satellite. And the downlink is the satellite transmits to stations on the Earth. The bands that a satellite is using for uplink and downlink is the mode. U/V is UHF/VHF. The first one is the uplink, the second is the downlink, so that's 70 centimeters or 440 uplink and 2 meters downlinks. UHF, VHF. Modes the satellites can use include single sideband, FM, CW data. PACSAT is packet satellite radio. It's an FM packet, common method of sending signals up to and from a digital satellite. So I send a packet, you get it, you send a packet. Telemetry. A satellite beacon typically transmits telemetry containing the health and status of the satellite. And who can receive that? Anyone. Licensed or not. Anyone can receive the telemetry signal from a space station. Spin fading is caused by rotation of the satellite. So the antenna is moving and is spinning for stability. And so the antennas are constantly changing their relationship to your antenna. And so it's going to go in and out. And it's called spin fading. Telecommand is one-way transmission intended to initiate, modify, or terminate functions of a controlled device. Those can be encrypted. Tracking software provides maps showing the real-time position of the satellite track over the Earth, the time, azimuth, and elevation of the start, maximum altitude, and end of a pass in view. So it'll tell you it's coming up over that azimuth and so many degrees above the horizon. You'll be able to see it or whatever it is, and it will tell you the arc it's going to make. You can literally look up the ISS and you can see it with your naked eye. A little 8-inch cube satellite, you're not going to see it with the naked eye. You need to go by this information. You can get an app on your phone. They're called the Keplerian elements. The apparent frequency of the satellite transmission, including the effects of Doppler shift, is what you're going to find in that tracking software. So it will give you, based on where you are, what frequency to dial in to get the Doppler effect negated. Keplerian elements are numbers that tell us the orbit of each satellite. Keplerian elements named after a guy named Kepler. They are entered into the satellite tracking software programs to locate the satellites. Keplerian elements for common satellites are distributed through amateur radio bulletin boards and other means. Special modes, television, video. We can do slow scan TV or SSTV, it's not yellow, sending snapshot pictures. Amateur TV or ATV, similar to commercial TV imagery. Pretty cool. You can send your own TV stuff. NTSC is an analog fast scan colored TV signal. Remote control. So we've got a little model radio here now. Everybody's got a quadcopter. Radio controlled RC telecommand, 50 megahertz band in a ham radio. So you can get 50 megahertz is 6 meter band. You can get a radio that transmits on 6 meter and get the receiver for the aircraft on 6 meters. And back in the day before digital, that was a big deal because not very many people that were flying RC models also had ham radio licenses. So if you had the ham, you didn't have to worry about that guy putting in a dive control and your airplane crashing into the ground. The limit is 1 watt, which is plenty for something like that because you got to keep it busy.
It's actually a lot of power for that.
It is because you got to keep it in view. Special amateur frequency of 50 megahertz band are set aside for radio control models. Getting a ham license enables you to avoid the congested non-licensed frequencies between 27, 72, and 75 megahertz. Questions? Somebody want to take this so I can get my voice right?
What is the FCC Part 97 definition of a space station? Charlie? Yep.
Okay, well, all telemetry information is typically transmitted by satellite beacons.
Charlie.
Which of the following is a way to determine whether your satellite uplink power is neither too low nor too high?
Charlie.
What is the impact of using excessive effective radiated power on a satellite uplink? Which of the following are provided by satellite tracking programs?
Delta.
Yep. Which of the following are inputs to satellite tracking program?
Bravo.
Bravo.
What mode of transmission is commonly used by amateur radio satellites?
Delta. Delta.
What is a satellite beacon?
Delta.
Yep. What is Doppler shift in reference to satellite communications?
Charlie.
What is meant by the statement that the satellite is operating in UV mode?
Bravo. Bravo.
What causes spin fading of satellite signals?
Bravo.
Bravo.
Which amateurs may contact the International Space Station on VHF bands?
Bravo.
Okay. What is a LEO satellite?
Delta.
Who may receive telemetry from the space station?
Alpha.
Yep. Which of the following methods is used to locate sources of noise, interfering, or jamming?
Charlie.
Which of these items would be useful for a hidden transmitter patent?
Bravo. Bravo.
What operating activity involves contacting as many stations as possible in a specified period?
Delta. Delta.
I agree.
Which of the following is the procedure when contacting another station in a contest?
Charlie.
Charlie.
Yes.
If you don't, they're gonna chew you out.
What type of transmission is indicated by the term NTSC?
Charlie.
Charlie.
Which mode is commonly used for single sideband voice communications in the VHF and UHF bands?
Alpha. Alpha.
HF operating techniques and digital communications.
Can I keep going? I can take it back. Okay, basic operating. Turn the power on, right? Push the button. HF bands, except 60 meters, are not channelized. Equipment's designed for continuous tuning, so 1 hertz you can change. VFO is variable frequency oscillator. We talked about those earlier. And making a contact, CQ is a general call to any station. Repeat CQ a few times, followed by this is, then your call sign a few times, and pause to listen, repeat as necessary. That's on the test. I'm not going to tell you how it works in real life. You'll figure that out quick enough. It's pretty close to that. Repeat CQ a few times, followed by this is, then your call sign. So CQ, 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 this is KG7TUO, KG7TUO, and then listen. To allow each station to operate according to conditions, signal reports are typically exchanged at the beginning of an HF contact. This is particularly important if they're having a hard time hearing you. They can point their antenna towards you. If they have a directional beam, you can turn your power up. They can, you can turn on your amplifier, whatever is required. But the signal report, right off the bat, tells you how well each of you is hearing the other one. Restricted CQs by location. So CQDX, that means I don't want to talk to anybody in the United States. I want to talk to somebody outside of the United States. Alaska and Hawaii do count as DX. Let's see, you can do a specific area, CQ Europe, CQ Texas, CQ7 area. That's anybody in the 7 area call sign area. Others are CQ contest, CQ field day, CQ winter field day, whatever it is. Could be this CQ Indiana QSO party. Whatever, whoever you're looking for. Example class, I need Delaware for one of my work call states. CQ, any station Delaware. CQ, any station Delaware. Example calling CQ on phone. CQ, CQ, CQ. This is Whiskey 1 Alpha Whiskey, Whiskey 1 Alpha, oh, this is W1AW, Whiskey 1 Alpha Whiskey. Calling CQ and standing by, over. Not yellow. Use the ITU phonetic alphabet to send your call, clarifies it for the listener. Example, calling CQ on CW or digital, CQ, 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 DE, which means this is whiskey 1 alpha whiskey, whiskey 1 alpha whiskey, whiskey 1 alpha whiskey, K, which means over. That's if you're sending CQ via CW, you gotta spell out all those letters with dits and dots. Or type them if you're doing digital with a text-based thing. DE means from, or this is. K is procedural for over, which I already taught. Answering a CQ on phone, enter their call. So if Dave calls me, KG7GFS, this is KG7TUO, KG7TUO, over. So he's called CQ, I've called him. I said, hey. Again, a phonetic response allows the listener to understand your call sign better. If he calls me specifically, I don't have to tell him who I am. He knows who I am. But if he's just calling CQ in general, I tell him who I am. Breaking into an existing conversation. Send your call phonetically during the break between transmissions. You may not be able to. You may only have time to send your KG7TUO. KG7TUO. You may only be able to key up and say, comment. Now you got 10 minutes. Now you transmit it. You got 10 minutes. You need to get your call sign in there for your ID. But you got 10 minutes. That may be all you've got time to, especially on
Comment typically will work on a voice system.
yeah. And on a repeater that's linked, there's delays and everything, and that might be all you got time to get in, because when he lets off and I key up, there may not be a gap. And we try to leave a gap, but everyone that uses a linked system is guilty of what we call quick keying.
And if you do say comment out there, wait, because they may have heard you, but they may take a couple of exchanges before they get back to you.
Yeah, so if he's yakking at me, more likely I'm yakking at him. If he's yakking at me, and he lets off the key, and you yell comment, and I'm already talking because I'm quick on the key, he may have heard it, but I didn't. And so when I'm done, he might go, hey, we got a comment out there. Okay, answering a CQ on CW. Their call, your call, DE, your call, optional repeat, your call, K. It's all black. Don't worry about it too much. Selecting a frequency, as we have learned, radio signals have a center carrier frequency and 2 adjacent sidebands, 1 sideband above, 1 below. It's important that you know the bandwidth of the sidebands in order to comply with band limits, because if I'm working lower sideband and I'm way over to the right-hand side of the band, but I'm not beyond the edge, I'm okay. As long as my radio is accurate, I'm okay because I'm transmitting into the band with my lower sideband. But if I'm an upper sideband, and I'm all the way to the right side, the upper end of the band, and I transmit, my sideband's over here, and it's out of bounds. That's what they're talking about. Make sure you know that. Selecting a frequency, a full AM signal uses a carrier frequency on both the upper and lower sidebands. So that's AM. This is both of them and the carrier. Gives AM higher fidelity than the single sideband. Single sideband may be used in at least some portion of the bands above 50 megahertz. So at least some portion of every band above 50, you can use single sideband. Most commonly used on the HF bands. Most commonly used on HF, only one sideband is transmitted, the other sideband carrier is suppressed. Less bandwidth is needed. It's got greater efficiency. We've talked about this already. Okay, upper sideband, USB. Most commonly used for voice communication to frequencies of 14 megahertz, 20 meters, and higher. Upper sideband. Includes 17 and 12 meter bands. Includes VHF and UHF. Upper sideband. Lower is used for, most stations use lower on 160, 75, 40, based on current amateur practice. If you don't want people to find you, you don't stuck with that. That's the most stations use. That's the convention. But you can always use upper. And then people are going to be like, I can't tune him in. Okay, signal separation avoids interference. So CW, you want 150 to 500 hertz of separation between signals. Single sideband, you want 2 to 3 kilohertz. RTTY is 250 to 500, and PSK31 is 150 to 500. So CW uses a little tiny sliver compared to single sideband. And those little slivers that single sideband, they're not that.
The center of the band is open.
Yes, it's 2 to 3 kilohertz of width though.
For each sideband, right?
Yes, for each sideband. So if you're using single sideband, the carrier would be here, and you're 2 to 3 kilohertz up or down, depending on which sideband you're using.
Back up 2 slides.
Okay.
There you go.
There's the carrier, which is suppressed, and one or the other of these is suppressed. And so you're from here, this is what you got dialed in, up to there or down to here. This is the width that you're taking up. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, no single operator or group of operators has priority on a given frequency. No one owns any frequency in amateur radio. The repeater does not own the frequency. The repeater owner doesn't own the frequency. No one does. If a conflict arises, move to a different frequency. Change in propagation can cause conflict. So you'll be in the middle of a contest calling CQ, just working a pile up, and then you'll hear some other guy calling CQ on your frequency. Well, it's not yours. And he didn't necessarily, he might have, but it's unlikely, come in and try and steal your frequency. More likely, propagation changed, and now you can hear him. Schedules or nets cause conflict. Courtesy rules. Courtesy is the rule. There are exceptions. We have some, there's a percentage in anything that are bad. We have some of those in ham radio. We try to weed them out.
Thankfully, they are in the minority.
The vast minority. A couple of them that I know of. Okay, in summary, listen for at least 2 minutes before transmitting. That's what they want you to do on the test. That's going to sound like forever, and someone's going to steal your band, your frequency. But it's not your frequency. 2 minutes is what they want you to wait. Identify your station by call sign at least 3 times. It's in yellow. I don't know who makes these questions because they have nothing to do with the rules.
Well, they have nothing to do with what's really happening either.
Yeah, but that's the questions on the test. Listen for at least 2 minutes and identify your station by call sign at least 3 times. Now, when I do my initial CQ call, I identify myself probably 6 to 10 times because I have a 30 to 60 second initial CQ call. I also have a 15-second CQ call, all programmed into my radio, so you push a button and it spits it out. That 1 minute is giving time to dial in and tweak in the frequency onto me. And when I first start, you don't have to hit that 2 or 3 times, even if people are out there looking, because it takes time for them to see the signal and get over to it. And if you don't have a scope, you're just scrolling through with your dial, listening for somebody. Well, if I'm not actively transmitting CQ right now, you're going to miss me. Be aware of the band edges. There it is again. The band edge is white sheet. Follow the band plan if possible. Have it posted on the wall right in front of your station or on a pull-out or somewhere. There's your band plan. This is the newest one. 2,200 meters. That's the full wave. So a half wavelength dipole would be 1,100 meters times 3 is 3,300 plus feet. That's over half a mile.
Good luck building that antenna.
40 acres square is 1,326 feet. You need 2 40-acre blocks side by side to get that antenna. And I don't know what you're going to use to hold it up, but you can use it. Logs. Okay, housekeeping and operating support. A complete paper or computer log of your station operations is useful to help with a reply if the FCC requests information about your station. Only thing I log on VHF, UHF is the weekly Agon net. Other than that, I don't log VHF, UHF. If somebody is being really stupid out there, I might log some sort of information about it. Everything I do on HF is logged, but it's not required. Only the following records are required. Call signs of other amateurs operating your station. It's in black though. So if I let Dave operate my station, I need to log his call sign. I don't know why. It doesn't make sense.
No.
That's the rule. I think that's held over from back when the radio itself was licensed. If using an antenna other than a dipole on 60 meters, this is going to be in the test.
And 60 meters is the only place it blocks.
If using an antenna other than a dipole on 60 meters, manufacturer's specifications or gain calculations for the antenna used needs to be logged in your logbook. So, if you're going to use 60 meters, make sure you're on the right channel and just use a dipole. You don't have to log it. But if you use anything other than a dipole, you have to log in the gain because you're limited to your peak effective radiated power, your ERP. Housekeeping and operating support logs normally contain date and time of the contact, the band or frequency of the contact, the call sign of the station worked, and signal reports sent and received. And you can do this with paper, or more likely and much easier, do it with a laptop. I use Loggers 32 because it's great because you can import everything into it and export things out of it real easy. And one MM I use for any contest I'm in. When we do field day, we have like 3, 4 computers, 5 computers maybe. They're all linked and networked to a central hub. And so if you work Dave and then I'm on the same band and I try to work Dave, as soon as I type his call sign in, it's going to say duplicate.
And N1MM is probably the most used contest
Most
data
used.
structure because it does that automatic verification.
And it's awesome, free. And Logger 32 for your main log. And do keep backups of the files, because if you lose a hard drive, you lose your log. It's not anywhere else but your station.